Alright, boys and girls, welcome back. We are looking at Module 2, Topic A, Lesson 1. And our objective says that we're going to be able to multiply multi-digit whole numbers and multiples of 10 using place value patterns and the distributive and associative properties. So let's take a look at number 1 here. Fill in the blanks using your knowledge of the place value units and basic facts. So we're going to be using our basic facts, which is our multiplication facts we're referring to. So looking here, A says 43 times 30. 43 ones times 3 tens. Well, if I'm using basic facts here, I know that 3 times 3, my basic facts would be 9. And now I have 4 times 3, that's going to be 12. So I have 43 times 30 is going to be 129 tens. Another way we can look at that is we could say this is going to be equal to 1,290. We had our place value chart, and we said we had 129 tens. We know that the 9 has to be in the tens place. The 9 is connected to the tens place. So the digit 9 is connected to the tens place. So therefore, this is going to bump over as 200s and 1,000. And of course, we put our placeholder here. Alright, so let's look now. Knowing what we know about A, let's take a look at B. So we have 430 times 30. Think about your basic facts. Well, we know that 43 times 3 is equal to 129. So now we have 129. And we have tens times tens. So that's going to be equal to hundreds. So now this 9 has to be linked to the hundreds place. So that means that our 9 is going to be in our hundreds place. We're going to have 12. The 2 is going to be in the thousands place, and the 1 is going to be in the 10,000s place. So we have 12,900. C says 830 times 20. Well, I know some basic facts here. I can multiply 2 times 3, and I get my 6. And then I multiply 2 times 8, and I get 16. So I know that it's going to be 166, and they gave us that. So let's take a look here. Now I have tens times 10. Well, we know 10 times 10 is going to be 100, so it's going to be 166 hundredths. All right? So this is going to be equal to 166, but this 6 in this last 6 here has to be linked to my hundreds place. So if this is my hundreds place, that means this would be my tens, 0 my tens place, 0 my ones place, which would put my comma right between my two sixes and give me 16,600. 4,400. I'm going to rename that as, and I'll start to use 2 colors here like we did in class. I'm going to take my 44 and say that's equal to 44. 44 what? It's in the hundreds place, 2 zeros. So 44 hundredths. Well, then I say, well, what about my second factor? Now I have 4, and my 4 is also in my hundreds place. So we have hundreds times hundreds. So think about it. If we wrote this, change this unit form to standard form, we would have 100 times 100. We're going to say, well, 1 times 1 is 1, and then we're going to count our zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4. 100 times 100 would be 10,000. So that means that this number here is going to be 176 10,000. Alright, and if we wrote that out, it would be 176, but my 6 has to be linked to my 10,000s place. So if my 6 is in my 10,000s place, that means I have a placeholder in my thousands place. I need to add my comma. I have a placeholder in my hundreds place, placeholder in my tens place, placeholder in my ones place. You notice here I have 4 digits here, so I need to add another comma. And 4,400 times 400 is 1,760,000. All right, let's take a look at E. Once again, I'm separating my digits from my place value units. All right. So let's take a look. Remember, we said every number has a first and last name. right? So we're going to take our 8 is our digit here. We say, well, 8 what? Excuse me, that should be underlined in orange if we're staying consistent. We have our 8. And the 8 is in what place value unit? It's 8 tens. So I have my 8 tens. That's what that number 80 is made up of. 8, and the 8 has to be in the tens place. Now I have 5. We say, well, 5 what? 5 is in the thousands place. So when we multiply 8 times 5, we get 40. So watch this. Remember, we said our red flag should go up when we're multiplying 5 times an even number. Because watch this. Now, this 40 comes with its own 0. It has a 0 there. So now we're saying 10 by 10 times 1,000. So 10 times 1,000 is going to be equal to 10,000. 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros, right, in 10,000. But it's not going to be 4 zeros in my final product because remember, 40 came with its own 0. It's going to be 5 zeros. Pay attention. This is equal to 40 10,000s. All right, so to write 40 10,000s, we need to write our 40, but this 0 has to be in the 10,000s, right? So that means we're going to have 0 in our thousands, 0 in our hundreds, 0 in our tens, and 0 in our ones. So it's not 40,000, it's 400,000. Don't be confused. We had 4 zeros here, but we're going to have our 5 zeros here because remember, we said 40 came with its own 0. So that's the 40 right there. And then I have my 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros. All right, let's take a look at the next problem here. Problem 2. Determine if these equations are true or false. Defend your answer using your knowledge of place value and the commutative, associative, and or distributive property. So what we're going to do is simply solve these problems. Let's take a look here at A. A says 35 and the 5 is linked to the hundreds place. That unit form where you have your digits and then your words is always going to tell you that last digit is going to be linked to the word. So in this case, the last digit in 35 is my 5. I say last as we read from left to right. My last digit is my 5. I know that that's going to have to be in the hundreds place, so that means I have 0 tens and 0 ones. So 35 is equal to, 3,500, is equal to 5 tens times 7 tens. Well, I'm going to use my associative property here to say that I can change these around. Remember, I want to get my digits away from my base 10 units. So my digits are 5, and that 5 is in the tens place. Here my digit is 7, and that 7 is in the tens place. So I'm going to switch it around. We talked about the base 10 numbers wanting to be by themselves. They're bougie. They don't want to be with regular numbers. So we're going to take this 5 and the 7, put them in our first set of parentheses, and then we're going to take our 10 times 10 and put them in our second set of parentheses. So let's go ahead and multiply this out and see. Well, we know 5 times 7 is a basic fact. It's 35. We see, well, 35 times 10 times 10 we know is 100. So now we have 3,500. This is true. So now let's take a look at B. Let's factor out 77 times 10, because this is 770 is equal to 77 tens. You have 77, and that last 7 is in the tens place. So we have 77 tens times 6 ones. 6 is in the ones place. And we're saying that that's equal to 77 ones times 6 times 100. Alright, so let's factor this out and multiply this out and see. So we're going to use our associative property and say, well, we have 77 times 6 in our first set, and we have 10 times 1 is equal to 77 times 6 is equal to 1 times 100. I can already tell right here that this is not going to be equal because 10 times 1 equals 10, whereas 10 times 100 equals 100. So even without doing this multiplication, we can do the multiplication here if we want to, and say, well, 7 times 6 is going to be 42. And I'll regroup my 4 tens, and I have 6 times 7 tens is going to be 42 tens, plus my 4 tens, which is going to be 46 tens, which would be 462. Alright, so then we have that times 10. And remember, just like in Unit 1, when we move 462 on our place value chart times 10, all of the digits are going to shift one place to the left, giving us 4,620. Alright, here we would have 77 times 6 is 462 times 100. Now the digits are going to shift two place value units, making this 46,200. So I know B is false. These are not equal. Let's take a look at C here. So now we have 50 tens. So if I put 50, and this 0 has to be in the tens place, 50 tens is equal to $500, or 500 rather. We were talking about money. I can have 50 $10 bills, that would be $500. Alright, times 4 hundreds. Alright, so let's factor these numbers out. We're going to use our associative property and say we want to have 5 times 4, simple facts. And then we have 100 times 100. So 5 times 4 is 20. Remember, when we're multiplying 5 times an even number, it comes with its own 0 now. So be careful, that 20 comes with its own 0. And we're going to say times 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros is 10,000. 100 times 100. So now we have 20 times 10,000 is going to be 20 10,000s. Or, 0 has to be in my 10,000 place, which is equal to 200,000. You see I have my 20 comes with its own 0, plus my 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros for my 10,000. Alright, so be careful when you're multiplying 5 times an even number. Alright, so let's see if 200,000 is equivalent to, we're just going to break this down, 40 tens times 500. And already I can see that it is going to be, we'll go ahead and quickly factor them out. So C is true. Alright, let's take a look at D. So we're going to multiply and say 24 times 10, and then we'll factor out the 90. So 24 times 10 is equal to 24 times 10. And then we have times 9 times 10 for a 90. So now we're going to say, well, let's go ahead and use our associative property and say 24 times 9 and 10 times 10. We can go ahead and solve this problem, but an easier way, because we're just trying to find out if it's true or false, we can see already that we have our 9 and our 24 here. So let's go ahead and start to factor this out. So we know that 90 is equal to 9 times 10, which we had here. And then we said 24 times, this is 24 and the 4 is in the hundreds place, so that's going to be 24 times 100. We can already see that this is going to be false, just based off of my expressions that I have here. 9 times 10 times 24 times 100, where I have 24 times 10 times 9 times 10. If you want to continue, we can go ahead and continue and say 4 times 9 is 36. I'm going to regroup my 3 tens and say 2 tens times 9 is 18 tens plus 3 is 21. So we have 21 tens there. So I know that I'm going to have 216 times 100. We had 216 on the place value chart. My 200s will move over 2 places and become thousands, 10,000s. So my number will look like this. It will be 21,600. Now, let's go ahead and do the same thing here. We already know that we have 9 times 24. Using our associative property, we can associate these. And then we have 10 times 100. Alright? So we know that 9 times 24 is the same thing as 24 times 9, which was 216. However, now we have 10 times 100, which is going to be equal to 3 zeros, or 1,000. And we have, on our place value chart, if we had 216 and we multiply by 10, 100, 1,000, 3 jumps, each one being times 10, our 2 would now be in the 100,000 place. 216,000 will be our final answer here. Alright, let's take a look at number 3 here. These are the problems that I think are most beneficial to students seeing the patterns in here. And you should start to see the patterns once we do our basic facts. So it says find the products, show your work. The first row gives some idea for showing your work, or showing your thinking. Alright, so looking at B, we have 8 times 5. So we know that 8 times 5 is 40. So we know that 8 tens times 5 is going to be 40 tens, or 400. Right? So now we have our basic facts. We know that this is 8 tens and 5 tens. So let's write it out. We say 8 times 10. This is our whole number. We said the number is 80. So 80 is made up of 8, and the 8 is in the tens place. I'm going to back up a little bit just so I can change the color here. Times, then we're going to factor out this 50, and we know that it's going to be 5, and the 5 is also in the tens place. So now I can use my associative property and say, well, I want to get my digits together, my 8 times my 5, 8 times 5, and we said that 8 times 5 is 40, so we're going to multiply that, and then we're going to multiply our 10 times 10. So we have 8 times 5 is equal to 40 here. 40 times 100 is equal to 1, 2, 3 zeros after my 4. 40. Then I have my 100 to equal 4,000. Alright, looking at the next one, we have 800 times 500. So very similar to the last problem. If you notice, every one of my factors just got another 0. So it was times 10. 80 is 1/10 of 800, or 800 is 10 times the value of 80. And the same thing, 50 is 1/10 of 500, or 500 is 10 times as greater than 50. Let's take a look here. Let's factor these out. I'm going to just write all my parentheses in so that I can use black. Then I'm just going to go ahead and write in my numbers here. So I have 8 in the hundreds place, 2 zeros. Then I have 5 also in the hundreds place, 2 zeros. So 8 times 100 is equal to 800, whereas 5 times 100 is equal to 500. Using my associative property, just get those blue numbers together. So I have 8 times 5. I want to do that because I know that that's equal to 40. Then I'm going to say, well, let's go ahead and multiply 100 times 100. And I know that that's going to be equal to 10,000. 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright? So now, remember, 40 came with its own 0. When I'm multiplying 5 times a even number, this number comes with its own 0. So now I'm going to have 40. And then my 4 zeros to put this at 400,000. Alright? So we have 40 on the place value chart. And I said we're going to move it over times 10, times 10, times 10, times 10. So 4 jumps. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's going to be 400,000. And the same thing over here. 40 on the place value chart. Times 10, times 10. 1, 2. It's equal to 100. It's going to be 4,000. This is why we're using this method, because it it makes it a lot easier for us to multiply some of these larger numbers based off of what we should already know based off of Module 1. Last but not least, looking at 3 here, we have 8,000 times 50. So we have 8 and a 5. We're going to go ahead and, I'm going to skip this first step. Let's go ahead and get those numbers together. So I have 8 times 5. Then I'm going to say, well, this is 8 in the thousands place. And this is 5 in the tens place. So now I have my 2 multiplication problems. I know that I have 4 tens, 40, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros, 1, 2, 3, 4, 10,000. So I have 40 times 10,000. Remember, 40 comes with its own 0. So I'm going to have 40, then I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros after it. So that's going to be also equal to 400,000. You notice I have 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros here, 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros here. It's a fifth 0 because 40 comes with its own 0. Alright, so let's look at that on the place value chart as well. We had 40, 10 times 10 times 10 times 10, or times 100. 10 times 10 is 100, times another 10 is 1,000, plus another 10 will be 10,000. So that's 4 jumps. 1, 2, 3, 4. 400,000 again. These two have the same answer. And if you notice, in my original factors, I had 4 zeros. 2 in my first factor, 2 in my second factor. In this one, I have 3 in my first factor and 1 in my second. Alright, last one. I'm going to move through this fairly quickly because this is video is getting a little stretched out here. Let's try to wrap it up. Basic facts. 3 times 7 is 21. 3 times 3 is 9. Plus 2 is 11. 3 times 6 is 18. Plus 1, 19. Alright. So since I know 637 times 3 is 1,911, I can already tell what my answer is going to involve. Each one of these answers is going to have 1,911 as the start. But it's going to be 1,911 and then whatever place value this 1 is in. So watch how I name these. Alright, I'm going to rename them so that they all say 1,911, but it's going to say whatever place value that 1 falls in. So let's go ahead and solve these. So I know I'm going to factor out here. I have 637, and that 7's in the tens place. So I'm going to skip this step where I multiply it by 10. Actually, let's go ahead and write it out just so that we're being consistent. So I have 637 times 10. Then I have 3 times 10. Alright, my 637, and that 7 is in the tens place. And I have a 3 that's in the tens place. That's why they both multiply by 10. Now I'm going to use my associative property and say, well, we have 637 times 3 is equal to 1,911. 10 times 10 here. That was my place value. Each one of these numbers, my 7 and my 3, were both in my tens place. So 10 times 10 is 100. So I know that this 1 is going to have to be in the hundreds place. So I have 0 tens and 0 ones. So I can name this, it's called, the proper way we would say the standard form is 191,100, or I can call this 1,911 hundreds. Alright? Think about what I said. I said the whole number and then said what place value this 1 was in. 1,911 hundreds, 1,911 hundreds, or 191,100. Alright? Next, I am going to skip this one and just go ahead straight to this step here. You can see where I made the change. I brought this 3 over, and now I'm going to multiply my 10 times 100. The reason why I have 10 is because the 7's in the tens place, and the reason why I have 100 is because this 3 is in the hundreds place. So remember we talked about a number having a first and a last name? So I would call this number, I would say 637, but 637 what? It was 637 tens. This number is 3, but 3 what? 3 hundreds. That's how I got those 4 factors here. Once again, I know that this 637 times 3 is 1,911, and then 10 times 100 is 1,000. So now this 1 is going to have to be in the thousands place. So that means I have 0 hundreds, 0 tens, 0 ones. So now I can call it either one. I can call it the name that the standard form, which is at the bottom here, which is 1,911,000, or I can call it 1,911 thousands. Once again, that's 1,911 thousands. So we had $1,000 bills, and someone gave you 1,911,000 bills, you would have $1,911,000. Let's go ahead and finish up this last one here. 637 times 3. That was 637 times 3. Now we're going to say, well, what place values were the 637 in? The 7. And what place value were was the 3 in? So the 7 was in the hundreds place, so that's going to be times 100. And the 3 was in the hundreds place, so that's going to be times 100. So last time we had 10 times 10, then we had 10 times 100, now we have 100 times 100. So we know we have our 1,911, and that's going to be times 10,000. 2 zeros, 2 zeros, 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros here. Alright, so let's go ahead and multiply it out. We have 4 zeros, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's going to give us 19,110,000 would be the way that we would say that. We'll write that at the bottom for our standard form. And now if we go to unit form, we can name this as 1,911 10,000s. So if you had $10,000 bills and somebody gave you 1,911 $10,000 bills, you would have $19,110,000. Alright, hopefully this helps, boys and girls. Go ahead and try to finish up the rest on your own. If you're still having trouble with this, we will be doing small groups on Monday.